Okay. So good afternoon. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Stephen Katz, who's definitely related to Susie Katz. Steve has been active in the drone world for over 6 years. He serves as the founder and chief pilot of Skyladder Drones, which is focused on commercial drone application, and is VP at Flying Lion, focused on public safety drones. He also is an instructor at El Camino College and Santa Monica College in continuing education departments teaching drone courses. He specializes in infrastructure inspections, construction documentation, 2 and 3D mapping and public safety. He's personally logged over 600 operational flight hours, both daylight and nighttime, across 2,000 logged commercial UAS flights. Is that United Airlines?
No, commercial drone flights.
Oh, commercial drone flights. All right. And he has a network of 20 plus full-time and part-time pilots in Southern California and Las Vegas, certified level 1 thermographer for infrared and thermal inspections. Today, Steve is going to share some insight on some of the innovative applications drones are being used for besides just taking pretty pictures. Steve, I turn it over to you.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Perfect. And in perfect timing, I just found this great video. Awesome. So welcome, everyone. I know some of you and I do not know others. So thank you for having us. And thank you to Hi Neighbors and my mom and Gary for inviting me. Let me re-screen share and there we go. And before I go too far, I want to know who know the audience a little bit. So if you're currently working, like Mark, what Mark currently does, and what type of role, or if you're retired, what type of role were you? Because it's a small group. Let's quickly run down it. I'll start with you, Gary.
Oh,
Whether you're retired or not, what profession? Where do you come from?
I am, in fact, retired. Been retired now for approximately 2 years. I work for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority in doing their planning activity, and investigated one time using drones to review operations.
I've done work with you guys.
Oh, great.
Susie, I know the current and professional Maj tutor, but also math teacher. So I have you covered, Mom. Thank you. Dennis, pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you, Stephen. Thank you very much for doing this.
You're welcome.
I'm sort of retired, like mostly retired, but if work comes by, then I'll do it as long as I get paid. And
Got it.
I did advertising copywriting, some consumer stuff, but a lot of technology stuff, but never anything about drones.
All right.
Airports, but not drones.
Lynn.
Yes. I have, for the last 20 years, I have been running a practice for a psychiatrist. Actually, he's a member of a John Shirer, and I run his practice. Psychiatrist, his wife is a psychologist. I take care of her practice as well. His involves medication, so I'm dealing with prescriptions, insurance, scheduling, and I am very often feeling like a one-arm paper hanger.
You often are, I bet, but
yes,
I'm sure you handle it really well. And then Mark, and I didn't get the last person. What's her name? The High Neighbor person.
Tony.
Oh,
Tony. Mark and Tony. So Mark, I heard you came home from work. Where'd you come home from? And then Tony, we're profession. So.
Okay.
Oh, Tony had me on mute there.
Okay, I missed you, Mark. Go for it. Pleased to meet you.
All right. I'm usually known as Tony's husband.
Okay.
I'm a semi-retired attorney. That means I wander into the office around the crack of noon. And there's an old expression, old lawyers never die. We just probate our clients' estates, and I do estate planning and probate.
Okay.
And I'm an avid photographer.
Oh, interesting. Well, I will cover everything but photography here.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be good. And Tony, how about yourself?
I'm a retired legislative analyst for LA County, And before that, I was a social worker that went to law school and went into legislative and administrative tasks.
Interesting. Interesting. My wife works at the courthouse, so she's a court administrator. Different, but associated.
No,
with-
we had one of those when I worked in the courthouse.
Oh, you worked at the courthouse. Okay.
Oh, I worked in Monterey Park Courthouse, not in Torrance, where
Okay.
you like.
Yeah, my wife said Torrance. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I am going to walk through and I'll try to tie some things in with people's professions. Mom,
Excuse
you're
me, Steve.
yes, Mom.
You missed Lorraine and Judy.
I didn't there. I don't see them on. Oh, did I miss a thing? I didn't scroll. Judy, I apologize. And Lorraine. Judy, you go ahead. So are you currently working or retired from what type of profession?
I have properties and I manage them myself, but only for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I sold medical equipment. I still do, but very little of it. But
Good. Well,
That's what-
medical equipment won't help much, but property management, I'll tie some stuff in. And Lorraine, pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I was an elementary school teacher for LA USD for about 49 years and retired
Wow.
in 2015. And science is my love.
Is your jam. Good. Well,
Yeah.
I have some science and then Jill is joining. We'll add, Jill, can you hear me? If you are, current profession or retired profession. Can you hear me, Jill? Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
No, you're fine. You're perfect timing we're just going through who's on and what they currently do or what they did do as a profession. So I can, and yourself?
Myself.
Yes.
Okay, Jill Lasker. And I was in education. My latest job was in administration at a secular private elementary school called Los Encinos.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And the school bought a drone.
They should. I would hope they would. So terrific. Thank you. And if somebody else joins on, Mom, let me know. But I think we got a good mix to talk. I can tie some things in with many of these people. So I am, thank you for the introduction, Gary. So I am going to speak about, I'm sorry, Mark, going beyond the pretty picture, but the pretty picture and everything that you know about pretty pictures apply to drones. And so drones are flying the unmanned aerial systems. UAS is what the FAA calls them, and what they are flying platforms. And what you put on the flat platform is what gets really interesting. And I'm going to talk about cameras and what you can do with cameras and a lot of that. But I'm also going to talk about some of the other things that we do with drones today. And feel free to ask questions. I have no problem being interrupted or hold till the end of a thought, whatever it is. If it's relevant for that moment, raise your hand, speak up, whatever it might be. So I think I'm going to get started. So when we talk about drones and the level of sophistication, we start with how I got started in it, and that's with photos. And drones just add a one more dimension to a photo, a Z component of altitude. But the same rules apply to drones when you're taking a picture. It's composition, it's lighting. You can adjust f-stops and exposure rates and all the other things. So having a good foundation, thank you to my father for that, a good foundation in photography lends to taking a good photograph with a drone. But as you go farther along, you could do video. You can then start doing different things with these photos. And I'm gonna show you some examples of this. You can start stitching them together. You can time-lapse video, which if we have time, I'll show you some. We can start doing some mapping, and I'm going to spend some time talking about mapping, because from an orthomosaic map, and I'll explain what that is, you can do it converts a drone to talk geek from a flat I guess you'd call it a raster file to something called a vector file. Basically where things that you have coordinates in the photograph. And when you have X, Y, and Z coordinates on the photograph, you can do things with it, which is one of the things I specialize in, and I'll talk a lot more about, but it'll make more sense. And then we'll show you some digital twins, 3D models, which is really cool. So for our tech geek school teacher, this is really cool. For advertising, they use this for movies, they use this for architecture and design. I'm bummed we don't have any engineers on or any landscape architects, because it's a great tool for that. But we'll talk about that. And then I'll talk about some other cool things we're doing that are not photograph based, that we have been using drones for recently. And that's thermography, or flying a magnetometer, a gas sensor. We have a bunch of different stuff we've done. So I'm going to jump around. I'm going to show some videos, and I'm going to hopefully make this interactive if you guys care to do so. But make this interactive so everybody can participate and ask questions, because I think you're going to find it hopefully interesting. So the most basic things to do are doing pictures. So a standard picture is great, right? So I tried to choose some Valley stuff. This is a standard picture that I converted into a 3D model. So what this is a 360, not a 3D model, I'm sorry, a 360 view. So this is basically a drone goes up in the air. I don't know if you can see me on, and also because I'm talking with my hands a lot, and spins around in a circle and takes pictures pitching up and down. And basically it creates a 360-degree view. And this is an airplane taking off, if you can kind of see. Right there, good old American Airlines taking off here at Burbank Airport. So to be a drone pilot, it's pretty cool, right? I'm officially working. If you look at where I am, I'm actually on the edge of the property of this. And so this is a construction property right next to Burbank Airport. And what they're doing is building, this is Amazon's in one or two of these warehouses. It's going to be an office park. The new terminal Burbank Terminal is going to be either one of these two locations right here. But what this allows you to have is just an amazing context. I did this for the FAA tower, because I put the FAA logo up there in the sky with my Skyladder logo, the company logo, but to thank them for giving me the permissions to fly. We fly there monthly, and we've been there for over a year, 18 months, watching these buildings get constructed. And so the idea here is kind of a combination of a time lapse but a 360 photo to say thank you to the FAA. To be a drone pilot, you actually need a FAA license, or we call it a certificate. So if anybody's a private pilot, they're Part 91. And what there are is different parts or sections in the FAA code. And what they did 5, 6 years ago, is add a whole new section for drone pilot. So think of it, it goes from jet pilot, commercial, United and American pilot, to somebody that pilots a private airplane, like a private pilot. You probably know people that are private pilots, and there's different rankings within that. Then a hot air balloon, a lightweight airplane, ultralights, and then way down at the bottom, there's the drone pilot. But technically, drones are treated by the FAA as aircraft. If somebody shoots down a drone, it's a federal offense. It's the same as shooting down this American Airlines airplane if they shoot down our drone. So people don't realize that, but tens of thousands of dollars in fine, jail time type of thing, and so there's certain regulations. There's also regulations about what we can and can't do. flying over people, for example, flying beyond line of sight. So to take this picture, I'm standing on the roof here, so I have line of sight of the drone at all times. So just some nuances. So let's kind of move along this coolness factor and move to Little Company of Mary Hospital. So everything starts with a photograph. So to Mark's photographic love here. So this is what I took at Little Company of Mary Hospital, and this is here in Torrance. And I took over 600 photos. And what software does is it does two things. So one of the things the software can do is basically create a map by stitching those together. If you think about a photograph, the edges of the photo gets distorted. And so you want to take the sweet spot of the photo, and they take the sweet spot of the photo and also the edges of the photo. And so this is a real-time map. So think of Google Earth on steroids. That's the best way to explain what this is. So this is Google Earth on steroids. If I put a base map behind it, like not like a Google Earth map, let me find an edge. Find an edge that's Google Earth versus our photo. Here, let me find a slide over. There it is. It overlays pretty well, but you can start seeing let's find there we go. So just looking at the stripes in the street, it doesn't line up perfectly, but see the stripe in the street of this map? The resolution is incredibly high because at, I think it was 200 feet, the resolution it's called 1 inch per pixel. So 1 pixel on the photo represents an inch. So it's very high resolution. Google's significantly less because it's either photographed from an airplane. You've probably seen some places like, wow, that's clear. They're using aircraft photos and maps, the same exact technology as we're using here, creating something called an orthomosaic, or they're using satellite photos. But as you can see, the difference between, let's go to a house, roof on the house, and I'm on the edge of the thing, but you can just see the resolution is just significantly better. And when it gets to places where you get to the edge, you kind of start getting skewing and things. One of the neat things about this is you can do a bunch of stuff with it, a whole bunch of stuff. And so let's look at the stuff we can just do from just a 2D picture. A 2D picture would allow us to measure things. So you could measure the distance between 2 points from here. And if you added survey points, it also shows the elevation change. So if this is 52 feet in length, there's a 1 degree slope, and it's a vertical height. I actually chose something that has about a foot difference, right? And so if you change it to over here, you'll see kind of goes down. If you go across the tree or across the curb, we'll see the curb. See the curb, right? And so that, or maybe that's the bush. No, it's the bush. So you can see where I am on the line right there. So it's the bush. So the idea here is that this now has taken 600 photos, converted it to what's called an orthomosaic photo, or a photo that has each one of these little pixels has an X, Y, and Z. And what you can do with X, Y's, and Z's is you can connect the dots and measure from one to another and see cross sections and a whole bunch of other really cool tools. I'll show you some volume. You can also measure the area. So for example, if you had a rooftop, I'm not sure if anybody's recently gotten solar and they had a drone come out, what they're able to do is take the area of a roof really easily. So you select the roof and double click, and I now have the area of it. So, and this is acres, and you can translate it into square feet and whatever you want it to be translated into. Kind of cool, neat. So this is where drones aren't just taking pretty pictures, but they're actually doing measurements, and they can measure volume, length, and a variety of other things. One of the other things it can do is, one of my favorite things it can do is if we took the area here in this parking lot and say, how many cars are in the parking lot at this moment in time? So so this gives me the area, it gives me what's going on, but I actually have, oh, it's an old map. I'll go to a newer map. We can actually count the number of cars, which we'll do in another. I was trying it on this is an old map, so I'll try it on a newer map. So so it adds AI to it. So different tools have different ways to do that. The last part, and this is where it gets really cool, and is that because I took the 600 photos, usually you just take photos straight down, and that gives you the ability to do some basic mapping. To be able to see a 3D model of a building, so I want to make sure Zoom's caught up. So this isn't a photograph. This is actually a 3D model of the building. So what could you do? Why is this important? Well, hey, I'm going to pretend I'm driving down the street now with virtual reality glasses or just an architect, and says, what happens if I want to change the color? They could drop this into an AutoCAD or some type of other design product, change the color. Hey, what happens if I cut this tree down? What if in this space right here, we build a building? How would that change the view from the room? You know, somebody's hospital room. So we can actually go into the building and look out. So you can do this with a model, but this also allows somebody to see the view from this third floor or the roof or whatever it might be of a building that hasn't even been built yet. Because you can position yourself into any aspect on this building, but from an architecture standpoint, it's a terrific way for the client. You know, as you drive down the street, you can say to the client, this is what it's going to look like when you add the building in front, or change the color of the building, or expand the building. And that's the neat thing about this is this is real time, what it looked like on this date, on the back in 2018 when I created this model. This is exactly how the building is. So it's documented exactly how it happened. You can see if there's damage on the roof or whatever it might happen. Cool. How's that? Cool. I got a cool. Thank you.
Very cool.
Very
Very
cool.
cool.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
We just started. We just started. So yeah, so 3D models are incredibly neat, right? And we know they're used for in motion pictures. They're actually doing this. They use some drones, but they're actually using this they build a set out in the middle of nowhere. They're not going to rebuild it. They document that set and the surroundings with its LiDAR and or photogrammetry like this is. And now they can then use it as a virtual reality or CGI, computer graphics, right? And put it, if they had to shoot another scene, they're not going to have to go out there and rebuild the house. They can actually put somebody in this space again. Wow. It's pretty cool. It's really cool. Yeah, but from architecture, my clients, architecture and engineering clients, find this just incredibly valuable, and not a lot of people are using it. I worked for a very large organization that owns a lot of property down in Orange County, and they were changing buildings and mocking things up. And what if we change all these palm trees up front to add an elevator? And what happened? You know, they do all these what if scenarios, and allows the founder and the executives of the organization to visualize it and not try to guess what something will look like. You could actually see how it will look, right, when you 3D model it. It's really neat. So using this same concept and the same technology, let's go back to Avion. So it's called the Avion Project, right at near Burbank Airport. So if we're doing these maps, these Google Earth type maps on a regular basis, which we do for this organization, we do it every month, we do it monthly. So if we're doing that every month, that means I can compare what it looked like back when it started. I think it was 2019 here. The earliest one I have here is 2020. Back in 2020 to what it looks like on August 1st. I don't think I have something sooner. Yeah, there's the 5th. There it is, October 31st. So what you're able to see is what it looked like before. No foundations, right? Just starting off the buildings you saw that were finished, which are now finished over here on the right, as a Google Earth view, you
Hey,
can now
Steve.
see what they were. And this lines up really well. So these buildings are creative buildings. They were just pads back in May 2020. And I could even go farther back. I don't think I have it loaded into this project. Yeah,
Steve, could I ask
I
a
started
question?
when it was dirt. Absolutely. Yeah.
Going back to the previous scene, when you took those photos with the drone and you were showing us how they could be manipulated. So the information that the photos you took with the drone go into maybe a CAD system and then they manipulate it there, or what's the process?
It's actually uploaded. This is one of the programs is called Drone Deploy, where it actually takes those images and stitches them together into an orthomosaic and or a 3D model. So that's what this software does. And they've been using orthomosaics before for years for like product design. Like if you see pictures, people take 360 views of things. So they've done it for product design on a small scale. And with the advent of drones, it created this whole new market to be able to create 360-degree views of bigger swaths of property. So to answer your question specifically, let me go back to it starts with the photos. In this case, it's over 1,000 photos mapped in kind of a crosshatch starting right at the runway. Again, have to have permission from the airport for this one, right? We're not flying over the airport property, but they know we're here. We're limited to only 200 feet. So we have to take, the higher you are, the less photos you have to take because you have more overlap. It's all about making sure you have overlap. In this case, we're flying lower, so we have to take more pictures. And so those are then stitched together into the first step, which is the basic map. And that basic map is this. It's a Google Earth map.
So each of those dots was a photo? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, exactly. So I took over 1,000 photos. This flight takes an hour to do because it goes zigzags, taking pictures, battery change, pictures, battery change, right? So lots of pictures. And we actually have 2 pilots on the roof of one of these buildings, myself and one other person. And she sits and watches the changes batteries and ensures that the photos are being taken. And then we check this before because if you missed a row or something hiccups, you won't get that model stitched. So that's exactly, each one of these pictures is a photo. So if I click on it, that's what it looks like. So I took the next one, you'll see it kind of sequential. You see how it's moving? It's kind of, think of it as like a flip book back in the day, right? Before all of our times, of course, but you get the idea, right? It's kind of like the old Disney movies, but the purpose of this is not to create a flip book. The purpose of this is to find common spots on multiple photos and stitch them together. Again, you can look up orthomosaic and be bored plenty. So, but it's really cool effect. And it's exactly the same way Google makes their Google Earth photos. The one thing with a drone is that it's a lot more higher resolution, right? I can zoom down on this and see plants, right? See a fire hydrant. Go ahead, question.
Yeah. So how do you how do you make the drone go in straight lines like that, and the spacing, and I
That's a
mean,
great question.
is there wind? Is the wind a factor? Is
Yeah, wind's
know.
definitely a factor. So this is how you do it. This software is one of the tools that we use. There's probably 10 leading softwares that does this. And what we're able to do is to say, I want to create a map of this area. And
you make a grid?
it automatically makes the grid for you.
Okay.
So it's you say, I need to have this overlap, side lap and forward lap, and it automatically creates the grid based on the resolution you have and based on the height you're flying. So remember, I said I was limited to 200 feet, right? If I went up to 400 feet, don't make this a mapping class. I want to get to some other stuff.
Yeah.
If I go to 400 feet, click away, you'll see how the spacing changed.
Oh,
you see
yeah.
that? Here, I'll go back to 400 feet, because at 400 feet, my drone sees approximately 400 feet wide.
Right.
And this would allow us to get that overlap, because you have to have that flip book overlap to get everything, because that's how it creates that orthomosaic, is by having enough overlap. So if I go to 200 feet, I go down to 200 feet, my overlap, I'm close to the ground, I don't see as wide. So I have to fly tighter, what we call as a lawnmower pattern, what my business partner calls boring, right? I call the most exciting thing, because I know what's going to happen, right? I know that this is going to yield a 2D or a 3D model. Here's a 3D model of the Avion site. Let's see. I haven't looked at it before. Let's see what it looks like. But here's a 3D model from Halloween, right? The finished warehouses, which you saw from the 360 photo, right? You saw that from the spherical photo. And you could do those spherical ones with your iPhone, right? With your telephone. But this allows you, and I wasn't trying to get edges of buildings and side pictures, but this gives you that same 3D model. And as a tool for a construction site, this is where it gets really cool. You go, hey, I have a rubble pile here. How big is that? Or how many trucks loads will that take? Because again, every pixel on top of this picture, and like a screen for your window, and every little box is called a pixel. It's what creates the pointillism of a photo, right? Each one, every pixel. But if every pixel, the volume of this stockpile of stuff, and know that it's 69.19 cubic yards. Right? We already found lines. I already showed you square areas.
How about the depth or the height? I mean, you've got
the height's here. The height's here. If the height doesn't matter for this, because it's based on, I was worried about, I want the volume here, right? I want to know how many trucks I need to order to pick up. I don't know what a truck holds, but probably less. You need a few trucks so this allows somebody to roughly know, is it 5 trucks and this, right? So if you just went around it and then measured the height, you're not going to get the ripples of this stockpile. And this is true for any stockpile, right? This has the ripples, Katz.
Yeah.
Can you kind of see it?
Yeah.
Trying to see, right? And so the ripples of the stockpile makes a difference here. If we wanted to know the height, I draw a line through it. Come on. Finish my line.
I was thinking the height from the ground to the top of the pile.
Right, which is what the volume just measured.
Okay.
But I'm able to share. You could do a couple things. You could say, hey, at this location, here's my X, my Y, and it's 692 feet. And then I can go do the lowest point, like the dirt. And you could do something with that. So it's about 5 feet. You see the difference? Right. 687 and right? If you knew where the height was. But that would just give you, math teacher, the approximate height, right, Mom? Right? Because of the ripples, there's no way to do the volume unless you got in the nooks and crannies. And because it's an English muffin of nooks and crannies here, there's no other way to measure the volume of it. We could estimate it with low height, high height, and that's how people. Usually it's the construction team usually goes out with their thumb and they go, yeah, it's about that, and right, and they're never right. I can guarantee you, never right. And it's even feet high and spread out over this whole field. Like it's hard, you don't even see a base. So the neat thing also, which we're doing for a client, is we're comparing a design of what the dirt is now to what the plan should be away. It's called a cut fill analysis. And the same concepts are used just over a bigger area of land, another 1 million square foot warehouse for Amazon. So kind of, you gave me a bunch of different things here. Let me see if I can have, I'm looking for cars. I need cars. Let me go find my car example. I had my car lot example and kind of gave you a pre-hit. So so I got a call from somebody at so a couple different stories. So I got a call from a local real estate owner, and he said, "Hey, can you come take video of my property on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so I can see how to use the rest of the lot for." He wanted to use the rest of the lot for a local car dealership to rent out the spaces. So what we ended up doing is you see if I can do it here. So what we did is with the AI of this software, because I said, hey, come out, and we'll come out 3 days in a row, but instead of taking video, I can count the cars for you. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did, right? So how many cars? 181. And it's pretty darn accurate if you see that. Look at that. Sometimes you have to clean it up, like, oh, there's one under the tree and one more under the tree. Sometimes they mark them as two cars, so you take one off. But basically, in 30 seconds, I just counted all the cars in this parking lot. Right? Back to 181, roughly. Right? And so what we did for them was exactly that. We counted it over, you see the dates, October, November, right? And then 2 days in a row. And then we color coded them for the different tenants. This is the tenants of the building over here. And then this was the purple is the car dealership, what they had parked there. And you could tell, because we have the resolution, the car dealer, pretty neat, huh? Right? And so we more than solved a problem. Again, going beyond the pretty picture. In this map, the underlying map, you all already know, there's 719 photos underlying. I did the same exact flights, right? I did the same mapping flight 3 days in a row, or 2 days in a row. Did the mapping of the tree of the cars, because this mapping was exactly, we did around 10, 11. So people weren't at lunch and they were back, right? We did it at the same time each day. And that Google Earth view, or what we call an orthomosaic map of that parking lot exactly at that time of day. Terrific. He was blown away by what we were able to do. It's pretty cool. It was a great report. Yeah. Right? All from drones. Mark, sorry, way beyond pretty pictures, right?
That's true.
Steve,
Right?
Steve,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
So you're using drones for professional purposes.
Correct.
It seems to me that all kinds of people can buy drones. And like I said, the school where I worked owned one. And I don't know that anybody had a certificate to fly it. It seems to me it arrived by Amazon one day, and the assistant principal, got it up in the air, and there it was. So my first question is, if individuals who buy a drone for kind of personal purposes need a certificate, and secondly, if somebody shoots it out of the air, if they would be fined like that if it's not for professional use.
Yeah, no, it's great. Great question. So the FAA is actually very drone friendly. So if you go to the homepage of the FAA and that's new. Huh, they changed the FAA homepage. So, but they used to have a little picture right here, but they have a whole section called drones, right? Talk about a lot more friendly. It's gotten more and more friendly as time's gone on. So when you go to the drone section, it will talk about what's needed for both a recreational flyer, which is what you're describing, or a certified pilot or commercial pilot.
Got it.
Now, so commercial pilots are defined as, if you want to read the regulations and be bored, but commercial pilots are defined, or commercial operations are defined as if it is being used for compensation or for commercial use.
Mhm. Okay.
The school, kind of gray area. Nah, it's pretty black and white. It's actually would be considered for commercial use. You need to have, now the students could fly independent of having a license, but the instructor should have a license. So, and the reason is they're making the school, whether public or private, is quote unquote making money, or is it doing it for professional usage? Charlie going out, or Mark buying a drone if he has one. I'm singling out Mark because he's our photographer in the group. Goes out and just wants to fly in his neighborhood. As long as he registers the drone, which basically gives them a number, kind of like what they're called a tail number, but it's a FAA certification number, a tail number. It's register your drone. It's $5. And you get a number, you put the number on it. And as long as you're flying someplace that's safe, and it defines this here, and there's areas basically not near an airport, right? And flying within these rules, not for commercial uses, you're free to fly anywhere you can. And people, legally, you can actually fly over people's properties. We're not going to get into the legal aspect of it. I'm not talking about for invasion of privacy. There's other types of laws or torts that are, or even statutes that you could be breaking. Noise, usually it's noise or invasion of privacy are the two things you want to be aware of. But technically, those are municipal or state level, and the attorneys can correct me. The national airspace is controlled by the FAA. So that's a federal rule. And so, so the city of Los Angeles says no drones from any park or from the port. Cannot take off from any park or the port. But if you're on private land, so you can't take off at Griffith Park and take pictures of the Hollywood sign. But if you go to somebody's backyard near there and take off, completely kosher. I can say that with for high neighbors, you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. And so so there's the nuances of that. But the recreational flyers have similar rules. The model airplane people, the American Modelers Association, AMA, where like near Van Nuys Airport, they had the little, you probably see the airplanes flying around, the little model airplanes. They're kind of have a section sliced off for them to allow them to fly for fun inside a park system type thing. So the other places, I think we got a good feel for what we do professionally, from a drone, from a construction site, monitoring a construction site, measuring things on a construction site, got that covered. Public safety, it's a good transition. And then educational users, there you go. Let's see, that's what it says, drones for education. Yep, part 107, I was right. So you need for schools, you need a, I didn't even know they had it. So they have a whole section to help teachers. So public safety, we do I'm a partner in a company that focuses on public safety, and I want to cover a couple of things about the public safety side of things. But basically what we do is a couple things, but in a couple municipalities, and the leading one is called Chula Vista, in the city of Chula Vista. Let me see if I can find the video. Here, behind the scenes. Let's see if I can broadcast my sound. Tell me if you can hear the sound here. Can you hear the sound?
No.
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 Okay, I'm working on it. Let me work on it. Share sound. Wow, that's fancy. Can you hear the sound there? It was a little
Yes.
background music. Terrific. Let me play this 3-minute video. It's pretty cool.
Well, DFR stands for Drones as a First Responder, and really think of an officer coming to your house for a call for service. A citizen needs an officer there. They're a first responder. They're responding to help a person with a need. And so
That's our pilots.
Thought was, hey, how can we use drones to be a first responder and go to a call for service when somebody needs help? And it's been an amazing tool. It's actually increased our responses to the community. We obviously have response times that we need to meet based on the priority of the call. And by using drones, we've actually seen our ability to get on scene and assist the community improve.
So the teleoperator is the one that's essentially flying the drone from our control room, and their main job is to relay information from the drone to the officers in the field. So if an incident is occurring, their job is to essentially get the drone on scene, get the visual information, and then relay that information to the officers via radio so that the officers don't necessarily have to be watching the video footage. The officers have access to watch the video footage, but sometimes on certain calls, it's better for our teleoperator to relay that information via the radio more than expecting the officers to watch the video footage.
The role of the RPIC, in my opinion, is the most important role of the operation. He or she are the ones in charge of troubleshooting the hardware, software, and making sure the area and airspace is clear, which in part ensures the safety of the program.
The partnership that we've developed with Flying Lion is it frees up our officers. It allows them to respond to those calls. That's what they were trained at the police academy to do. And
so I'll stop it there, but you'll get the idea. So those are our pilots on the roof. They have 4 rooftops in Chula Vista. They're the leading cutting edge program in the whole country. They're doing this in Redondo Beach also, in Clovis, California, outside of Atlanta, and hopefully, knock on wood, they're doing a trial in another city that we're helping with in a week. So the idea here is that the drone is ready to go on the rooftop, and when there's a 911 call, this drone flies to the scene before Chula Vista, and gets there about 40% of the time before before the law enforcement, the patrol officer gets there. And by doing so, it allows them to, they've had over 8,000 drone flights down in Chula Vista. Again, they've been cutting edge. We've been working as the pilots on the roof for over a year and a half. So, as you can see, it's from a point out and then usually straight back. They're not patrolling with right? They're looking for somebody here or something, but out back, when they're looking for somebody. And so this is, it tells you what's going on, that there was a weapons threat, and they report this the day after in Chula Vista. So don't do anything bad in Chula Vista, because the drone will be over you faster than a patrol officer will get there. It's pretty cool. Again, beyond pretty pictures, right? And the final couple things, and I could talk hours. So police drones, there could be a drone in a trunk. That's one method for having a police drone. Let me find had a presentation. That's a PowerPoint. There it is. So you can have tactical drones, police officers having drones in a trunk. They open up their trunk, pop out the drone, and they can look around a corner or go into a house. Close quarter operations is when they go into a house. They can do accident recreation now. So they usually have scanners out there with the drone, and now how you can do mapping and 3D modeling. You could create a map of a larger area to recreate a larger area for accident recreation. which you guys seen from a commercial standpoint. And then drone as a first responder, very cutting edge, responding to 911 calls and getting to the scene again within a few minutes, while and sometimes clearing the scene, and that eliminates the need for a police officer to go to the scene, or helping the police officer with infrared and other zooms to say, hey, there's nobody in the back of the house. When somebody starts jumping fences, the drone is just awesome, because you can't hide from the drone. It's just terrific. Yeah. And it's also, they don't know they're being watched often. Helicopter comes in and the criminals hunker down, they hide. With the drone, they're kind of, they think they have a false sense of not being seen. So it's a really cool system and a really cool program. So I have the last thing. Where's the video I had? Let me find it. I'm going to pause my screen really quick. And there it is. So we did some testing for FLIR. Hold on. Pause that. And they had a new thermal camera. So obviously infrared is great for law enforcement, but it's also great for commercial use too. So we use thermal for inspecting solar panels. Here, let me find it, show you an example of it. There we go. So inspecting solar panels is pretty much the most common use. You can also inspect rooftops, but as you can see here in this little picture, I don't know if you see that little, it's bright. So when a solar panel looks like this, they all look uniform, you can't tell. When a solar panel is working, it absorbs heat and absorbs the energy from the sun. When it's not working, it reflects it. And so it bounces and it looks like that. It looks like a Christmas tree, kind of right there. You can kind of see where the hot spot is right there. You can see that this module is not working. We inspected a 200 megawatt solar farm, which is over 1,000 acres, the beginning of this month in Palm Springs, in Las Vegas. And we had 2 pilots out there for 12 days. So it's almost 24 person work days out in the field to inspect this huge farm, but they're able to see right away if somebody didn't plug in a plug. Visually, if you looked at it, it all looks the same, right? They all look uniform, black panels, modules, you would never know. You turn on thermal and it lights up like a Christmas tree. Wow. And that would be true also with, so when we did some testing, for FLIR. This is out in Redondo Harbor. They actually have a barge for sea lions, and they set it up for sea lions. You'll see it in a second. So the resolution of thermal is very, very weak. But as you can see the cold sea lion coming out on the top and the warm sea lions being there, and you can see the mouth is open. You can see the cold and the warm, and you can see there's a sea lion in the water here, where the head was actually warmer than the. But you can see the cool one right here came in. This one's a cooler one, right? It's kind of cool, and and we can zoom in. And I was showing off this camera for FLIR, but let's go back a little bit. But you can see it pops out of the water right there at the top of the screen. And you can see he's cool. So him being cool compared to the other warm-blooded sea lions. And then over here on the side, you can see the relative temperature of the sea lion in the water. Any body part that's out of the water is actually hot or colored. Right? Red and yellow are hot. Blue is cool in this palette.
It's very cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Who knew? Sea lions, right? So we won a little contest for this because it was pretty creative. So, and because they were trying to figure out, hey, you can even see the eyes on that. Wow, look at that. It's a great camera from FLIR. FLIR is the leader, based in Santa Barbara. So that kind of summarizes. Isn't that cool? Look, you can see the sea lion in its fin out. It's so cool. There it is. So so that summarizes some of the neat things you can do with drones, right? We covered a bunch of stuff today. Right now, I answered some questions. We're at the top of the hour. All right. I didn't show you the gas sensor. We're actually flying a drone into the plume of ships, and we're doing some tests of it. So basically, to do a smog check on a ship, and so the ships that come over from China have 2 fuel tanks. They have crappy fuel, excuse my French, Mom, and really good fuel, and American fuel, and they're supposed to switch over.
Apologizing to your mother. What about us?
I'm sorry, Lynn. I apologize, Lynn.
I'm totally offended.
I know. Yeah, you don't tolerate that crap from me. I know. So and if they don't flip over the right fuel, there's no way to know that they're burning fuel, especially all the ships sitting out. So we're trying to we've been working on this for a couple of years now, and to try to do tests with it. All the ships out at sea right now, we're trying to get permission to go do a test on them. But we have the sensor, and we're actually, so that's one thing we started to test, which is actually a gas sensor. You can also test gas in landfills, other things. We could have tested that stinky smell in Carson. We didn't have the sensor yet, so it didn't matter yet. So, but some really cool use case for that. And then we're flying a magnetometer too to find old oil wells. So when you're doing construction, you need to find the old oil well, but the old maps aren't accurate. And so flying a magnetometer, you're able to go above the noise of cars and such, and flying like in a parking lot, and see down. The height you fly is the depth you see, because they're big, deep oil wells. You could fly a little higher and you'd still see this big oil well, big piece of metal down in the ground. So some really cool stuff. Hopefully you agree, and you can Skyladder. There's a whole bunch of additional videos and examples and use case examples there too. So
Yeah, Steve.
Yes.
Steve,
Questions?
it's Ray. I want to
Hi,
ask,
Ray.
Hi, honey. Listen, I remember when you first got started, your mom said that the city of LA had you take the drone and you went down underneath Wilshire Boulevard. Was that to check the methane gas or something down there?
No, I never went under Wilshire. We've actually done a couple projects for Metro. So, excuse me. So, Gary. So one of them is we did a security decat tail. Excuse me. Hold on. They're stealing copper cables along the blue line. So we actually went out with a drone, and with thermal, we're able to see a mile each direction. And we were patrolling to try to help, because not only do they steal the cable, but then you have to reinstall the cable and the cost of the cable. So it's a huge expense. So we've worked some trial programs with Metro on that. We've done some mapping of Metro for stockpile measurements, and also for as-is or as-built measurements to compare it to what a surveyor would do. The one thing a surveyor does, if you do topographers or maps, you don't have any visuals. With the drone photography, drone imaging and mapping, you actually have what's there. So you might have a bump, but now you can see the bump is actually a fire hydrant or a power pole or one of those switching stations for a train. So we've done some. So we never went underground, not for Metro, Ray, but we've done multiple things for Metro, and we actually are. What did we do underground? We have a drone that actually can fly under bridges, but and it also can fly indoors and underground, because it doesn't rely on GPS. It relies on vision to avoid running into things. It's a good drone for a first drone for somebody, because it's you can't crash it. It's really smart. So, and I'm really good at crashing drones too.
Yeah, you just absolutely amaze me with
That's cool.
With all this. Yeah,
it's pretty cool, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And I know your mom is so proud of what
Oh,
you're doing, and
well,
I hear it.
I'm glad. Dennis, you had a question?
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes. I wonder if
sir.
you can solve one of the major political dilemmas of our time.
Absolutely.
If you have a crowd of alleged crowd of say 1 million people at a presidential inauguration,
Uh-huh.
can you get enough resolution to tell people how many people were really there?
Actually, we were doing some testing with that at the AVP volleyball tournament for the city of Manhattan Beach. The answer is yes. One, you could visually count them, just put little dots on every person, and it would take a long time, but it would do it. There are companies that do AI for people count. The challenge is having the resolution and the density. So doing it in sections would probably be the easiest way to do it. Not flying over the crowd, but flying adjacent to it and doing an angle at it. Absolutely, there's companies that would count heads, right? And there'd be plus or minuses, and you can visually go in. But just like with the car, get the first swath. You could definitely, absolutely verify if how many people were in a crowd. There's multiple ways to do it. Multiple companies doing AI for it. I have not done it yet. We wanted to do it for Manhattan Beach, and the imagery was just we were too far away. So it's a great question, and it's not a major political debate. There was 1 million people there. So I'm talking about for Obama. So Obama had 1 million. The other one didn't. I don't even know. I don't know. So yes, Lorraine, you don't have to raise your hand, but go ahead and speak up.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. So one of the things
Absolutely.
I was thinking when you were showing the details of, being able to zoom in on cars and stuff, I immediately thought about, could this be used for law enforcement and following these cars that are in the chases and things like that. So I got some of that got answered, but then I thought,
yes, if used properly. So except for like the riots when we had the civil unrest, where they were monitoring areas and watching like the police concentration. Santa Monica did this a lot. They had the police concentration like on the one area in that one mall, but there was trouble happening in the back. The drone could see stuff like that.
right.
But the police are very sensitive, and we especially are about doing surveillance. We don't do surveillance, right? In this case, we're responding to 911 calls. But to answer the question, yeah.
But then I had the other thought was, if these are, I'm not talking about the super sophisticated drones, but maybe like your first drone kind of drones. What would prevent criminals from, I don't know, flying the drone around to check out whether people were home or not, whether to break into their houses,
absolutely,
that kind of thing. And if, I haven't ever seen a drone around here, but if I did, who would I report that to?
So the answer is two things. One of the things that we're starting to test is a drone detection system, because when we're in the air, we don't want anyone else in the air. So when we've done multiple events, especially Redondo Beach, which we have a contract with, we actually had a called counter drone system out, where the system we had detects the drone, because legally they should not be flying over people, right? And so we had drones flying over the crowd, and while our drone was flying around the edges, keep just watching the perimeter, watching, reporting if there's a medical emergency, what's the best way for an ambulance to get in and out, just helping the police out, right? At the event, we had a counter drone, or we had a drone detection system that actually told us where a drone was in the air and also where the person was. And Redondo Beach PD had a positive interaction, meaning walking over to him or her and saying, hey, you shouldn't be flying over people. And we think they were stealing intellectual property, not that they would get the music unless somebody was recording inside, but they were capturing imagery for it. So there is drone detection systems out there, and they're getting more and more prevalent. Airports are starting to have them. Military bases and other have the rights to actually take a drone and have it land someplace or take control of a drone. So it goes a step farther there. So the answer is there's definitely systems out there. Certain ones see different types of drones and different, it's not easy to do. And so, each manufacturer has different frequencies and different controls. And, but the federal government's doing some of this already. And bad guys are doing it. So one of the things that we want to, when we don't have it yet, we have for our law enforcement, we have a drone van. Let me find let me see if I have there we go. Share. Share screen, share. So we have a Sprinter van that responds to incidents out of Redondo. So this is my partner, Barry, and this is Flying Lion. And so this has a 65-inch TV, multiple drones. And when this happened to be the Beach Life Festival, so music festival, so it was a demonstration, or we were covering the event and had a drone in the air at all times for this event. This was 2 years ago. We also, if you kind of see the shadow in we had an Israeli company with looks like a radar system. It's actually a drone detection system up at that. And then we had one at the latest event too, which happened, what was it? Early October, I think it was September. A couple months ago, different system, but that's where the positive interactions and work great. It's like, oh, I'm just teaching my nephew how to fly, and it's like, no problem, go that way, don't go towards the stadium, or go. And it was a positive interaction. People are using it, and we're hoping to add that to the drone van. So if we're on some type of serving a search warrant, sometimes we put a drone up first a couple hours beforehand to watch the backyard to make sure people haven't left the house, and just to keep an eye out for the safety of the officers before they serve a warrant. If the criminals were sophisticated, they definitely could have a drone in the air watching if something's happening nearby. And most of them aren't that we know of, but I'm sure people are using it for nefarious ways.
Whole new world.
New world. But yes, there's some detection.
His brother is watching.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, if you're doing it right, you're not being watched. Believe me. Yeah,
Can you mention the beehive?
Sure. I have actually just saw the pictures of it. Yeah, I have pictures of the beehive, Mom. So let me find some sample photos of beehive. So
you can just tell the story.
So there was a home. I could show it. I show the video even better, but yeah, this will be. Can you see my screen? So 3-story home or terracotta roof, so you can't walk on the roof in Newport Coast. So it was right near Newport Beach, and so Newport Coast near Fashion Island, and beautiful home, elderly couple. They're like, if we have to get up there, it's not only a big ladder, but if it has to be mitigated, it's a scaffolding. We see bees inside our house. What's going, where are they coming from? So with thermal, beehives actually warm. We could see through the wall, but the walls were too thick on this home. So the walls had a uniform temperature, and so couldn't do it. But when we found the bees, these little specks, we actually visually could see them. But when we turned on thermal, we could actually see them crawl up. And this was a totally shadowed hole, so I wasn't able to see it at all. Let me see if I have I don't have the video of it. So we were doing a roof inspection also at the same time, but we found their beehive and found that the bees were hiving here and crawling up and up and over, and so they now know where to repair. There was a hole, and that's where the bees were crawling up the wall and then into
Wow.
their house. So
That's cool.
this is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
never thought, because it was so dark, and I was like, you know what, maybe thermal. I don't know if bees are hot or cold, but they're actually warm-blooded. So it actually showed up pretty well on thermal.
Wild.
And we couldn't see it visually unless I had added our spotlight or something like that on there, which I didn't have. So thermal worked out great. Yeah, and so same thing with a grunion hunt. So this is a grunion down at the beach. So you have to stay back at up to us, and then they yell go. Otherwise, if you scare off the first grunion, all of them stay out. So at a certain point, you're going to see the go. There they are. They just got the go.
Whoa.
And then everybody rushes the water for the grunion. We were thinking we might see the grunion in the water, but we couldn't see the people. But this is completely pitch black. If you saw this visually, it was completely pitch black, and it's this is what it looked like.
Wow.
This is the same video.
Wow.
You'll see all their spotlights go on here. There you go. And then they run into the water. There they go. But otherwise, thermal, we saw it all.
It's just fascinating.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Sure is.
Yeah, we had one of our students that was volunteering at the Cabrillo Marina here, or the aquarium. I had no idea. We were hoping to see the grunion in the water, but we couldn't, or it had been in the sand. Thermal just wouldn't pick it up. We also stayed up and away from everyone, as you can tell. Pretty neat.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Well, hopefully, any other questions?
Yes, I had
There you go.
2 quick ones, Steve.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
When drones first started, they just seemed to be low tech kinds of things that just flew over.
Mm-hmm.
What do you anticipate the technology will be for drones in 5 and 10 years? Because it's incredible the things in a short period of time that they've been able to do, and the way their use has been implemented in so many areas, architecture and law enforcement and, crowd control and all these other ways.
Right.
What else can we anticipate seeing from them?
It's a great question. Let me, so I can see your faces. That's a great question. So couple of the trends, and we're involved in some of them. So we don't manufacture drones, right? We're professional pilots. That's what we are, service provider. So a couple of things to keep an eye out for. So drones will be delivering packages soon. So they're currently investigating. There's currently a committee. And so it would be happening right now if not for the FAA saying no. So the technology is already there. It's proven technology. Obviously, we can fly a drone from, military drones are being flown across the whole world, right? They're flying from Las Vegas or Colorado in Iraq and Iran. So the beyond line of sight is not an issue from a communication standpoint, but it is from a federal regulation. So line of sight and flight over people are preventing UPS, FedEx, Google, Amazon, and some of the fast food. We're working with a company called Flytrex out of Israel that's doing deliveries. If you probably saw El Pollo Loco's making a big promotional lot of noise about it, and they're working with Flytrex, the company that we're actually doing deliveries on a golf course in Vegas to proof of concept. They have a restaurant. People want food as golfers or the residents around the golf course, and the drone comes out, drops down a line, so it doesn't land, so you don't have to worry about getting hit by the propellers, and then it drops a bag, retracts back up, and leaves the bag behind. It's really cool technology. So once this works out from the regulation standpoint of the FAA, you're going to have packages being delivered. If you notice, Amazon is going in around airports. So I believe they're going to have autonomous airplanes flying from big regional. So San Bernardino, March Air Force Base out in Riverside. They have large airplanes coming in, big cargo airplanes, Amazon cargo airplanes coming in, and then they're going from trucks or vans to these local distribution sites, like the one at Burbank Airport. They have the same one at same type of thing at Torrance Airport. So I believe they're going to be taking the smaller airplanes, think of Cessna size or a little bigger than Cessna cargo, into these smaller airports and transporting via drone that way. Amazon's goal, and then ultimately the last mile, is back to what Flytrex is doing, is delivering to the home. Amazon's goal, if it's under 5 pounds, they want to deliver it in less than 30 minutes. That was their goal. They announced it 5 years ago, and they're still working towards it. So delivery of goods is going to be a huge trend to backyards or to a regional area than a robot or van happening. So delivery of goods, logistics, huge part. And you hear it about stuff like that now. Drones that are more autonomous. So drones, like I was talking about, the drone that can't crash, that's happening. So we're inspecting building facades, but we're still flying the drone, right? I'm still going to a construction site. So the future of drones is a drone in a box, a fully autonomous drone. The box opens up, the drone takes off. It could fly the perimeter for security. And then why not? It has cameras and infrared. Why not do exactly the same thing I've been doing, visiting different sites for construction companies, or my pilot team has. So using that same technology, a drone in a box allows the drone back to land, close up, and wait till the next mission. So delivery of packages, autonomous drones in terms of flying, and then autonomous drones as in I can't crash, are probably the biggest trends in future of drones. So drones where you don't need people, drones that are delivering goods, and then drones that you do have a human, but to the point of who has asked me about going underground, where you could go underground and not crash. Ray, it was Ray's question, a great question. So
my final question to you.
No, definitely.
Is how
yes,
did you
Tony.
get into this technological field?
It's Mark, be ready, because you could get sucked in too, because I started as a photographer. So my wife bought me a drone for Hanukkah, and within 14 hours I had crashed it into a tree in the local park. This was 6-7 years ago, but that it was all about, I saw a photographer in Manhattan Beach called Bo Bridges who was using a drone to get some really cool images, like straight down on the beach and the pier, and just really neat compositions. And so it started with just photography, of getting an elevated view to the camera. And it's a huge difference. I was putting GoPros on a stick. When you could fly it, it's just a huge difference. Back then, I didn't even have a camera. You would have to put a GoPro, but you couldn't see what you were shooting. It wasn't first person view. Now you can see it on a phone or a monitor of what the drone sees. So you're able to compose really nicely. So, so that's how I got started. It was my love for photographer. Thank you to my dad, and my lovely wife buying me a drone. And I went to a trade show, and I'm like, wait, drones can do real work instead of just doing pretty stuff. And that's the reason for the company name Skyladder, is to keep people off ladders. It's a great question, Tony. Thank
Fascinating.
you. Yeah, it's a good question.
I know
And it
Dennis.
sounds like you like what you're doing.
It's the coolest. We're doing such cool stuff. It's incredible, right? I mean, we're and there's always challenges and new things and new ways to do it. And it's a combination of I come from a high-tech background, and so it's a combination of software, it's engineering and knowing how mechanical things work, because this thing flies. Not that we're repairing it, but when something's not going right, and it doesn't go right often, not crash in the ground, but why isn't it starting, or why is the software not doing my paths for me correctly, things like that. So there's always challenges from its technical standpoint. And then I make the joke that we're professional battery chargers. because we constantly charge batteries. It's all about battery management and making sure we have fresh batteries and charged batteries. So having a generator, I had my car running all day today where I didn't run charging batteries because I didn't take the generator thinking we'd be good. So it's, there's always some type of challenge, which makes it really fun. So, and it's cutting edge. It's the,
Okay.
I know that Dennis had a question. He had his hand up quite a number of times. Is he
and
still
Gary's
there?
trying to close it.
Yeah, Gary's kind of close it. And Tony asked the question already.
Put upon Steve, and we thank him very much for all his activity. We'd love to have him back if he wants to do another session.
Yeah, let's give me a year or two. There'll be a whole new world out there.
We're not going away.
Yeah, it's terrific. Well, thank you for your great questions. Thank you for your for supporting it, and thank you for what a terrific organization. My mom loves High Neighbors, so loves.
We
being
love
part
your
of it.
mom.
So,
We love her
well,
too.
yeah, I do.